take a journey back in time with me to a world of sun-drenched islands, shimmering seas, and marble temples reaching for the heavens. This is ancient Greece, a civilization that, over 2,000 years ago, laid the very foundations of our modern world. It wasn't just a place of myths and legends, of gods and heroes, though it had plenty of those. It was an intellectual furnace, a crucible where ideas were forged that would shape art, politics, science, and how we think about our own existence. This wasn't an empire built on brute force alone, but on the power of the human mind. From the bustling agora of Athens, the marketplace of ideas, to the quiet groves of the academy, the Greeks asked the big questions. What is justice? What is a good life? What is the nature of the universe? And they weren't afraid to challenge every assumption to find the answers. So how did this relatively small collection of city-states, often at war with each other, become such a powerhouse of innovation? It all starts with a new way of thinking. Before the Greeks, the world was explained through divine whims and ancient traditions. But a new breed of thinkers, the first philosophers, began to look for rational explanations. They looked at the stars, the seasons, the natural world, and believed that behind the apparent chaos there were understandable patterns and principles. This was the birth of logos, or reason, the idea that the universe is knowable. Think of Thales of Miletus, often called the first philosopher who dared to predict a solar eclipse, or Pythagoras, who discovered that the harmony of music could be explained with mathematical ratios. He believed that numbers were the language of the cosmos. This wasn't just abstract thought, it was a fundamental shift in human consciousness. For the first time, people felt empowered to understand their world, not just be subject to it. This explosion of reason wasn't confined to stuffy lecture halls. It spilled out into every aspect of life, especially politics. In the city-state of Athens, a radical new idea took hold: democratia, or rule by the people. Of course, Athenian democracy was far from perfect. It excluded women, slaves, and foreigners. But the core principle was revolutionary: that ordinary citizens should have a say in governing themselves. Imagine the Nix Hill, where thousands of Athenian men would gather to debate laws, declare war, and hold their leaders accountable. This was direct democracy in action. Speeches weren't just for show. They could sway public opinion and change the course of history. Great orators like Pericles championed the democratic ideal, arguing that public service was a noble duty, not just a privilege for the rich. This idea that power should reside with the many and not the few is a legacy that echoes in the halls of governments around the world today. And what about art and beauty? The Greeks didn't just see art as decoration. For them, it was a pursuit of the ideal. Take a look at their sculptures, like the Discobolus or the Venus de Milo. They aren't just realistic portraits of people. They are perfected forms. The sculptors studied human anatomy with scientific precision, but their goal was to capture an ideal of balance, harmony, and proportion. They believed that beauty was a reflection of divine and mathematical order. This same principle applied to their architecture. The Parthenon, perched atop the Acropolis in Athens, is more than just a temple. It's a masterpiece of mathematical genius. The architects used subtle optical illusions, like slightly curving the columns and the foundation, to make the building appear perfectly straight and harmonious to the human eye. It was designed to inspire awe, to be a physical representation of the city's intellectual and cultural glory. Their pursuit of perfection in form has influenced architects for centuries. But perhaps the most dramatic Greek innovation was theatre. Twice a year, the entire city of Athens would gather in vast open-air theatres to watch plays. These weren't just simple entertainment. The great tragedies, written by playwrights like Sophocles, Aeschylus, and Euripides, explored the deepest conflicts of the human condition. They wrestled with themes of fate, justice, pride, and suffering. Through the stories of characters like Oedipus or Antigone, audiences were forced to confront their own moral dilemmas. And then there was comedy, with playwrights like Aristophanes using biting satire to mock politicians and question social norms. Theatre was a communal experience, a way for society to examine itself in a public forum. It was a form of mass education and civic dialogue, all disguised as entertainment. The very concepts of tragedy and comedy, of protagonists and antagonists, were born on the Greek stage. Of course, we can't talk about Greek ideas without mentioning the big three of philosophy: Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Socrates, the eccentric and brilliant gadfly of Athens, never wrote a word. He preferred to wander the marketplace, engaging people in conversation and questioning their most cherished beliefs. His method, the Socratic method of relentless questioning to expose ignorance and get closer to the truth, is still the bedrock of Western education. His most famous student, Plato, took these ideas and built a comprehensive philosophical system. He founded the Academy, arguably the first university in Europe, where he taught that the world we see is just a shadow of a higher, perfect reality of forms and ideas. And then came Plato's student, Aristotle, a true polymath whose curiosity knew no bounds. He studied everything from biology and physics to ethics and politics. His method was based on empirical observation and logical deduction. For nearly 2,000 years, Aristotle was simply known as the philosopher. Together, these three men set the agenda for Western philosophy, asking the questions that thinkers are still debating today. The legacy of ancient Greece is not a relic of the past, preserved in dusty museums. It's alive. It's in our language, with words like democracy, philosophy, and marathon. It's in our political systems, our scientific methods, our art, and our literature. The Greeks taught us to be curious, to question authority, to believe in the power of reason, and to strive for excellence. They showed us that a small group of people, armed with big ideas, can truly change the world. Their story is a powerful reminder that progress isn't inevitable. It's built on courage, on intellectual honesty, and on the belief that we can and should always be striving to be better. Thank you for joining me on this journey back to the birthplace of ideas. If you enjoyed this exploration, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.